Welcome to Hot Takes Up Front. I'm Nathan Frontiero, the arts editor of the Daily Collegian.
And I am Mark Chiarelli, the editor-in-chief of the Daily Collegian.
And we are here for a video review of Batman v Superman. Please note, this review contains hot takes and spoilers for the film in question. If you haven't seen it yet, you might want to stop watching. If you don't care, carry right along.
All right. Batman v Superman, and we're just going to get to it right away, made Nate cry.
That's right.
Like full-on 5 minutes worth of tears.
A solid 5 minutes of face-contorting sobs. That's true. And the reason that it did is very frustrating. Again, we are addressing spoiler material here. So I have not historically read comic books. I have been into their movie adaptations, but I haven't read the comics. So I didn't come to this movie knowing its comic source material, beyond knowing that it borrowed from The Dark Knight Returns.
Should I preface that I entered knowing nothing?
I think that's an important thing to add.
Absolutely not.
So Mark didn't know anything. I knew a little bit. The little bit that I knew is that that Zack Snyder pulled from The Dark Knight Returns. I did not know that he took some notes from the comic series The Death of Superman. And so I was horribly unprepared for the gruesome finale of this film, in which Doomsday, the bestial monstrosity created by Lex Luthor out of General Zod's corpse and his own blood, stabs Superman in the heart with an organic
right there.
bone spear. Yeah. You know, like we're
straight to the crux of it.
Straight to the crux of it. And so when I saw this, I thought that Superman was this symbol that I had. As, you know, even it being separated from the comics, I still thought, like, Superman is this thing that mattered to me as, like, this, like, symbol of hope. They even say that his symbol on his chest is a symbol of hope. They say that. And if they spend, like, half of Man of Steel saying
they put it
that,
on a casket.
Right. They put it on a casket. The U.S. government puts the Superman logo emblazoned in silver on a black casket.
There's a hero's funeral.
They gave him a soldier's funeral. They fold an American flag over the triangle, and the shot is tracing over this, and they reveal that it's the Superman symbol. And I just felt like this symbol that I believed in had been stolen from me, and it had been ruined. Now, stepping back from it, I understand that it's a comic series that I didn't know about. That's my own ignorance coming into the movie, but to see it for the first time, it just ruined me, and I just let go.
Like I was sitting next to him in the theater, and I think you cried for a few minutes.
Like a few minutes.
But I never noticed.
No.
Like
I kept myself like really rigid, because I didn't know if Mark. I'm not sure about crying in public, or crying. No, let me say this. I'm not sure about crying among people who don't know that I'm a crier.
Had no idea.
Hot take. Not much of a hot take. Nate Frontiero is a crier. It's okay. So I'm crying, and the movie ends, and I just take my glasses off, and Mark looks over as if like, oh, he's just overwhelmed with disgust for this movie. That's why I took the glasses off. But it was actually to wipe the salt out of my eyes. But yeah, so I was definitely feeling pretty miffed at Zack Snyder.
So I went in, like I said, knowing nothing,
Right.
And knowing that everyone was supposed to hate the movie. I don't think this movie was that bad.
It's not terrible.
Like if you go in with the mindset of this is going to win an Oscar, you're going to be disappointed.
Even adding some nuance to that, if you go in just expecting a good movie, or expecting a movie to meet like some general standard of quality that you might have personally, this movie isn't going to sorely disappoint you. This like critical mass of hatred for this movie, a little bit unjustified. It's really sloppy.
Yes.
The script is sometimes embarrassing. Some of the dialogue is just terrible.
Like Ben Affleck was done dirty with this script.
Terrible.
Martha.
Why did you use that name?
He says it like 6 times.
It's like there's a little pause between each time he says it. It's like, Martha. Why did you say that name? It's like, okay.
It's like we're just waiting for him.
Waiting, like,
who isn't fast.
They just didn't edit the movie tight enough to avoid those pauses. They just left them in because they were like, ah.
Well, they threw all of their like editing and cinematography resources into the opening.
Right in the beginning. Beginning of this movie, terrifically shot. Like, cinematographer
I
in
had
this movie.
I had
great
so
job.
much hope
So
after
much
that
hope.
opening scene.
Right? Hope, yeah. So much hope. Like, you know, because, you know, it's only the umpteenth cinematic incarnation of the death of Bruce Wayne's parents, you know, so why not give it a showy sequence, you know? Like, so you got these gruesome, like, slow motion images that are kind of, like, brutally beautiful in this way. You know, you got, like, pearls flying, like, from his mother's neck as this, like, mugger outside of a theater in Gotham was just shooting them in cold blood, and then, you know, Bruce is screaming. But then we get into something pretty silly that actually, like, made me laugh, like, right away. So Bruce Wayne runs in this intro, intercut with the murder of his parents, over to, like, a field, and he like, by Wayne Manor, and he falls down a well. And we've seen this image before. He's gonna, you know, be wrapped up with all these bats that he awakes. But so Zack Snyder takes this scene and he's directing, like, the bats come flying and they surround Bruce Wayne and he floats. He starts floating like an angel as this cyclone of bats. Doesn't even seem to be touching it, but it's just like the motion of it is just making him rise. And
There's a common theme here where they could have gotten by without him floating.
Right.
They could have gotten by without Amy Adams being naked in a bathtub, just to show that Superman loves her.
That's one of the more gratuitous moments of the film. You get this, like, one of the first scenes, you know, in this movie, continuing the lazy characterization or development of Clark Kent, Superman, and Lois Lane's relationship. I saw someone tweet about this, basically. You know, if you look at these two movies, Man of Steel, the original Zack Snyder Superman movie, and Batman v Superman, forget everything you know about these two characters, about Lois Lane and Superman. Back for some technical editing difficulties. So Amy Adams is just in this tub and she's naked, and, you know, Superman is like, they have some silly exchange. Superman is not that interesting in these movies. His character is really nothing there. Henry Cavill, not a great actor either.
No.
You know?
Like, as you said, fills out a suit great.
He fills out a suit great.
Gives me nothing.
His muscles are spilling out of that Superman suit. But I tell you, the man cannot act. He is all jaw and no charisma. You know, and
Like, he doesn't do Batman service.
No.
He doesn't do Amy Adams. I adore Amy Adams. One, that scene was ridiculous. Two, her character is just not as good as it could be.
You know, one of the lines that Amy Adams says in this movie, Lois Lane says, "I'm not a lady. I'm a journalist." Like,
And I want to love that,
you know,
so much, but I can't.
She just the way this movie treats journalism, you know, like,
Okay.
Mark, you got something to say about that?
So, obviously, I didn't know anything about this movie. Like, I saw a preview for this movie, and I turned to my roommate and I said, "Oh, I didn't know that they were bringing the Joker back." And he looked at me and said, "That's Lex Luthor, you idiot." Like, the look of disgust on his face was palpable. So I didn't know anything about this movie, but I think that, like, I've kind of backed into a little journalism knowledge throughout my time here at UMass.
We'd hope so.
And, like, the editor of the Daily Planet, it's just like, "Clark, I need you on football, and I need a headline. Here, I can see the headline now." But, like, he's totally okay with Clark just disappearing for hours at a time. Like, no one ever says, "Hey, why does Clark always disappear when there's Superman on TV?" It happens like 4 times.
I don't know.
And he just sits in his room and just looks for headlines, and that's all he does.
They like,
And then at the end, can I go to the chopper part?
yeah, you know, go ahead. That's a terrible part.
Like, the guy won't send reporters. He doesn't send reporters to a spewing, like, area of, I don't even know how to describe it. But Amy Adams, on a whim, requests a helicopter to fly to Superman in his time of need. She doesn't tell him that. She just says, "I need it. It's not for work." And he turns and he just goes, "Get her the chopper." And we're just like,
As soon as there's no vocational motivation for using the chopper, you can use the chopper.
like, and I'm totally biased, but in the same year, basically, that Spotlight comes out, they reduced journalists to headline grabbing stone. Like, I don't know.
Editorializing run rampant. News headlines. They're like trying to get the Daily Planet is like a tabloid. Not a newspaper.
I think I could have played a better editor if they cast me for the role.
I think so. Let's call up Zack Snyder.
Can we redo this? We got time.
We have time to do this. It'll take a couple years.
I don't want to
Just
graduate.
get a bunch of compositors. Redo all the footage. This movie's a mess. But
Should we get to the fighting?
yeah, I think that's a good one.
They.
So, the whole deal with this movie,
It's Batman versus Superman.
it's called Batman vs. Superman. It's predicated on this notion that like these two superheroes are just gonna go at it. They're just gonna suck each other. Pretty simple, like, you know, machismo like premise.
It happens once.
It was one time. There was one fight.
Like the whole movie, they do their own thing, except for like one time where Batman crashes into Superman in the road, and Superman's just like, consider yourself lucky. And then they just disappear again. And then boom, Batman kicks his ass until and then all of a sudden, stop! He's a friend of my son! Or something like that. I might have butchered the plot, but honestly the plot deserved to be butchered at that point.
I mean, yeah.
You can clean it up, I guess.
When we think
I'm
about,
sorry.
I mean, even if we do a cleanup, this movie's still a mess. This sequence in particular is particularly egregious. Well intentioned. It's kind of interesting to have these two heroes go head to head on screen off the comic book page. Is taking a lot of inspiration, I guess, from The Dark Knight Returns. But Batman gets this big mech suit on, and he's got some kryptonite weapons. He's got kryptonite gas and a kryptonite spear, which becomes a whole other mess in the finale. I just really don't want to bother with. But they're fighting, and he's able to weaken Superman to basically his own level with the kryptonite stuff, and it just, you know, then they just start socking each other. There's like one scene that's kind of held like medium shot from the two of them, and it's basically this just dull sequence of them just exchanging punches in the face, and then, you know, the camera starts to move and we get a little bit more action going on.
But not much.
You know, not much. Like it's this like dull sort of sequence that's just kind of resting on like the idea that a fight would be interesting.
The more I think about it, the more mad I get, because like the foundation is laid for a pretty good movie.
For a decent movie.
And Zack Snyder was just like, whatever. Like this is what you're gonna get. It's gonna make a ton of money. I'll see you in 2 years.
You know, like some parts of it kind of feel phoned in, but at the same time, you know, when I step back from this, I'm really not like so disappointed. There's a weird part of me, in spite of all like the messy asides to try to work in the DC cinematic universe tie-ins. Like, you know, we see the Flash, we see Cyborg, a little bit about Wonder Woman, who is great in the movie.
Great.
She adds a little bit of intrigue, but even her character is not that well defined. It's basically we get a shot kind of holding her close to the frame, and she gives a kind of a mischievous or some kind of knowing look off screen, and that's how we understand that Wonder Woman is on top of the situation, that she knows what's going on.
It's another one of those just trust me guys.
Exactly.
From Zack Snyder.
That's the thing about this movie. It's not the worst thing that's been put to screen comic book movie wise. I would argue that Avengers Age of Ultron is a far worse movie, just like a painful mess to sit through. And Man of Steel is certainly worse, I would say, than Batman v Superman. But Dawn of Justice basically just forces the viewer to rely on pre-existing knowledge. So if you're not going into this movie with any experience with this specific franchise or with any comics or comic lore, you're not going to get it.
That was kind of me.
Yeah.
Like the time where he goes to his dad and his dad is Kevin Costner. The whole time I'm just like, why is Kevin Costner in this part? And you had to clear it up for me after. And
You
then I
know,
was like, oh, okay.
Kevin
now it makes
Costner
sense.
plays his father in the first movie, and you know, gets sucked into a cyclone. It's kind of disturbing. But
All right. Money question. Would you go see it again?
in a weird way, yeah,
I think I would too.
because there's something about these superhero movies that are overstuffed. With plot, with details, with kind of strange, underdeveloped performances. They're interesting, they're confusing, and I want to be able to unpack my ideas about it a little bit more carefully than just this one like rush of sensory like overstimulation and like one barrel of hot takes.
Yeah, really, you are so much better at unpacking these things than me. But I would go back, like, to try to fool myself into believing what the movie could be, as opposed to what it is. Like, and it's got plenty of fun parts and plenty of if you turn your brain off, basically, it's fun.
Yeah.
Which is not that hard, I don't think, if you're going to a movie.
Yeah, I mean, even if you don't decide to like check your critical eye at the door, I think that there's plenty in this movie that's worthwhile. I've heard some other comments from different critics exploring the idea that, like the comics changing characters over time, the movie is doing an adaptation that suits the chaotic era in which it exists, which I think is like a valid way to look at it. I would want to see the movie again to be able to understand like where those things are coming from. Like, what is this really saying about 2016 America or the world at large? Our concept of heroes, like Lex Luthor has some interesting stuff, and
He was a good character.
He's a good character. Jesse Eisenberg is basically taking his punk flip asinine shtick from The Social Network and adding a little more caffeine to it, it seems.
And long hair.
And longer hair. Yeah, he's got great hair in this movie.
For you.
Oh, thanks. But there's these underdeveloped things, and I'd want to go back and see them, even though the movie kind of feels half-baked. I still want to get another taste of the batch, I suppose.
I have no language that would be better than what you just said. So at this point, I think we should wrap it up, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm halfway through my drink. We're out of the pizza.
I need more pizza.
So we're gonna leave and go get some more hot cheese up front. This has been Hot Takes Up Front. I've been Nathan Frontiero.
I'm Chiarelli.
And thank you. We're signing off from the Massachusetts Morning.
Pizza!
This movie's a mess.